It is the morning of March 15th, 44 BCE. You wake before dawn. Your body slave helps you dress, and the wool of your toga smells faintly of cedar and last night's fire. Outside your window, Rome is already awake. Cartwheels grind against the stone streets. A dog barks somewhere near the Tiber, and the distant voice of a water seller echoes through the morning air. You are a senator of Rome, one of 300. And today, Julius Caesar has called the Senate to meet at the theater of Pompeii. You know the rumors. Every man in Rome knows the rumors. Some say that today Caesar will be named king, that the Republic itself, the thing your family has served for generations, will die in that hall before the sun sets. Others say those whispers are nothing more than fear and paranoia. They say Caesar is a reformer, a brilliant leader, a necessary man in a dangerous age. You do not know which men to believe. You do not know which side you are on. But in a few hours, you will have to choose. Before you step into that chamber, you must understand the world you have inherited, because the Ides of March is not a sudden event. It is the final chapter of a crisis that has been building for nearly a century. By 44 BCE, the Roman Republic is a republic mostly in name. The constitution that once balanced power, the two consuls who checked each other, the Senate that deliberated policy, the tribunes who protected the rights of the common people, has been slowly bending under the weight of powerful men who command armies. Men like Marius, Sulla, Pompey, Crassus, and now Caesar. 4 years ago, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his army. That act alone, marching a legion into Roman Italy without the Senate's permission, was essentially a declaration of civil war. Caesar won that war. Pompey fled Rome, and soon after, he died. Caesar returned victorious and was named Dictator Perpetuo, dictator for life. Romans did not fear the word dictator the way later generations would. For centuries, the Republic had appointed temporary dictators during emergencies. But temporary power was one thing. Power for life was something else entirely. That sounded dangerously close to a word Romans hated above all others: rex, king. You have spent your entire adult life believing that the Republic is the greatest achievement of Roman civilization. Your ancestors fought to defend it. 5 centuries earlier, it was the ancestor of Marcus Brutus who helped overthrow Rome's last king and drive the monarchy from the city forever. Every Roman child learns that story. Every Roman citizen grows up believing that kingship is the enemy of freedom. So when you walk toward the theater of Pompeii this morning, the weight of 500 years of Republican identity rests on your shoulders. The streets are crowded as you make your way through the city. Senators, attendants, slaves, and messengers all move through Rome with unusual urgency. Rumors travel faster than footsteps. You notice small details. You hear that Calpurnia, Caesar's wife, begged him not to attend the Senate today. She reportedly suffered terrible nightmares during the night, dreams filled with blood and violence. Caesar almost stayed home because of it. That detail alone will haunt you later. There is also the story of a prophet, a haruspice named Spurina, who warned Caesar weeks ago to beware the Ides of March. When Caesar encountered him earlier that morning, he reportedly joked that the Ides had arrived and nothing had happened. Spurina simply replied that the day had come, but it had not yet gone. As you approach the theater, you begin to notice something else. Marcus Brutus and Gaius Cassius are walking close together, speaking in low voices. Around them stands a small cluster of senators whose eyes move constantly, watching the crowd, watching the doors, watching each other. At certain dinner parties, you have heard the word liberators whispered quietly among trusted friends. The liberators. You are not entirely sure what that word means yet, but very soon you will understand. Inside the theater of Pompeii, the Senate begins its session. Caesar enters and takes his seat, a golden chair granted to him as an extraordinary honor. Some men call it a throne. Others insist it is merely a symbol of respect. The difference between those two interpretations is the entire political argument of this moment in Roman history.
A senator named Tullius Cimber approaches Caesar carrying a petition. On its surface, it's a routine request asking for the recall of his brother from exile. Caesar begins to dismiss the request. Then Tullius Cimber grabs Caesar's toga. That is the signal. From where you sit on your marble bench, you see Publius Servilius Casca suddenly draw a dagger and strike Caesar in the neck. Caesar immediately grabs Casca's arm and shouts in Latin, "Casca, you villain, what are you doing?" And then everything happens at once. Daggers appear everywhere. Nearly 22 senators surge forward at the same time. The chamber erupts into chaos as blades flash and men shout. Some conspirators accidentally cut their own allies in the confusion. The space is tight, the movement frantic, and these men are not soldiers. They are politicians, landowners, lawyers, men unused to violence, now holding knives in a room full of colleagues. Caesar tries to fight back at first, but eventually he pulls his toga over his face. Moments later, he collapses at the base of a statue of Pompey, the very man he defeated during the Civil War inside the theater built in Pompey's honor. And then Julius Caesar stops moving. For a moment, the entire room seems to freeze. Then panic spreads through the Senate. Some men run immediately, desperate to escape the building. Others remain frozen in shock, trying to understand what they just witnessed. A few begin calculating what this moment means for their own survival. You are one of them. Perhaps you knew nothing of the conspiracy. Perhaps you suspected something but convinced yourself it was impossible. Or perhaps you knew everything and said nothing. History is full of those shades of responsibility. Through the chaos, you see Marcus Brutus raise his blood-stained dagger into the air and shout about liberty. But something strange happens. Nobody cheers. Outside the theater, word is already spreading through Rome that something terrible has happened. The streets grow quiet for a moment as the rumor spreads from person to person. Then the quiet breaks. Panic and anger begin to move through the city like a storm. Rome has suddenly become a very dangerous place. The conspirators believed they understood what would happen next. They believed that killing Caesar would restore the Republic. They believed the people of Rome would thank them for freeing the state from tyranny. They imagined crowds celebrating the return of liberty while the Senate calmly resumed its traditional authority. They were wrong about almost everything. They had killed the man, but they had not killed the idea of Caesar. And they had failed to anticipate three forces that would soon destroy them. The first was Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal ally. Only days later, he would stand before the Roman people, hold up Caesar's blood-stained toga, and read Caesar's will aloud. A will that left money to every citizen of Rome. The crowd that gathered for Caesar's funeral did not celebrate the conspirators. Instead, grief turned quickly into rage directed toward the Senate. The second force was Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir. He was only 18 years old when Caesar died, and many powerful Romans dismissed him as an inexperienced boy. Over the next 14 years, Octavian would prove every one of those men disastrously wrong. The third problem was the conspirators themselves. They had no real plan. They killed the man and then found themselves standing in the center of Rome with no program for reform, no clear leadership, and no strategy for governing the republic they claimed to have saved. They had the daggers, the body, and a very complicated question about what came next. Within 3 years, both Brutus and Cassius would be dead after losing a war against the forces loyal to Caesar's heirs. Within 17 years, Octavian would take the title Augustus and become the first emperor of Rome. The republic the conspirators believed they were defending would disappear. The thing they feared most, the rise of a single ruler dominating Rome, arrived anyway. In a strange twist of history, their attempt to save the Republic helped bring about its final transformation. As evening falls on that day in March, you walk home through streets that feel strangely quiet. The city you have known your entire life suddenly feels unfamiliar. When you reach your house, you bolt the door behind you. You sit alone in the atrium and think about everything you witnessed that day. You think about what happened, about the choices people made,
and about the choices you made or failed to make. You wonder whether those are even different things. Rome will not feel safe again for a long time. The Ides of March is not simply the story of a powerful man dying. It is the story of what happens when people who love an institution believe removing one person will save it, only to discover too late that the institution had already changed around them. And that kind of story, it turns out, is not only Roman. If you made it all the way to the end of this story, thank you. I truly appreciate you spending this time with me exploring history. Now I want to ask you something. If you were a senator in that chamber on the Ides of March, who would you have been? One of the conspirators, a loyal supporter of Caesar, or one of the silent majority who simply ran when the blades appeared? Tell me in the comments which senator you would have been, and I'll see you in the next one.